The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.
You can be taking your life in your hand simply by lying in the sun. The skin cancer epidemic. Fun in the sun can be hell on the skin. The human machine needs the right fuel, but can vitamins and supplements really make up for what our diet leaves out? Arthritis in the knee could put you on the sidelines or even under the knife, but there may be ways to keep your options open. Join us as we get right to the heart of matters affecting your life today on Today's Health.
In the 60s, magazine editor Diana Vreeland came back from the Mediterranean with a suntan, and it became vogue. Decades later, we're still paying the price for fashion's folly. Hello, I'm Kathleen Sullivan, and this is Today's Health. The sun produces invisible rays known as ultraviolet or UV light. These rays cause skin damage, and it's now very clear that the perfect tan is no tan at all.
A day at the beach, fun in the sun, get a deep dark tan, California dreamin', fantasy will meet reality.
Most of us grew up thinking that a suntan was a sign of good health. Not anymore. This year in the United States, about 1 million new cases of skin cancer will develop. Almost half of all new cancers are skin cancers, and most occur due to overexposure to the sun.
Fortunately, with early detection, skin cancer is almost always curable. Still, each year more than 9,000 men and women will die from this disease.
Well, there are a lot of good things that the sun does, but one of the bad things is the damage it causes to skin. And it's the ultraviolet radiation from the sun that causes that damage. When ultraviolet radiation from the sun hits the skin, what happens is it damages the cells, both in the upper layer and the lower layer of the skin. In the deeper layers of the skin, it causes the skin to lose its elasticity, its tone, and causes your skin to kind of sag and age. It also causes you to get freckling and uneven colors of the skin and so-called broken capillaries on the skin. The extreme, though, is when you've got so much damage, the DNA in the cells are actually damaged, and then you develop skin cancer. The bottom line is there's no such thing as a safe tan. You have to think about why you get tan. In order to get tan, your body has to be hit with ultraviolet radiation, and the pigment cells in the skin, the melanocytes, have to sense that they're being damaged and try to protect themselves by producing melanin, the pigment in a tan. So in order to get tan, your skin must be damaged first.
The skin is the body's largest organ. And just like any other vital organ, it is susceptible to disease. Repeated damage from the sun can cause skin cancer, of which there are 3 basic types: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and malignant melanoma.
A basal cell carcinoma is the most common kind of skin cancer, and it's seen primarily on the chronically sun-exposed areas, the areas that get sun no matter what you're doing. So typically, we'll see about 80 or 85% of them on the head and neck or the backs of the hands. In fact, 1/3 of all basal cell carcinomas are found on the nose. Squamous cell carcinomas look like red, rough areas, often with kind of a callus on the top of them or crust on the top of them. Melanoma is the least common but most dangerous type of skin cancer. It's found primarily on the back or the trunk in men and on the legs in women.
Remember that healthy skin is not suntan skin. If you think you need a tan to look good, the price of that vanity could be your life.
The incidence of skin cancer has reached epidemic proportions, and the most deadly type, malignant melanoma, has doubled among Caucasians within the last 20 years. Fortunately, early detection and treatment are starting to reduce the yearly toll.
I believe I developed skin cancer from living in South Florida for 50 years and spending a lot of time when I was younger at the beach, water skiing. And I worked construction work in my teenage years, so I was constantly in the sun. I come every 4 to 6 weeks here, and every time he will either freeze something off or cut it out and cauterize it, or it would be a plastic surgeon would have to take care of it.
This year, over 80,000 people will discover that they have the most deadly form of skin cancer there is, malignant melanoma. If caught early, melanoma can be treated successfully, but unfortunately, this type of skin cancer will probably account for over 7,000 deaths.
Melanoma is the worst of the 3 skin cancers in terms of these individuals have a higher chance of dying from their cancer. Melanomas, when caught early, have a 99% cure rate. Approximately 10 to 15% of melanomas arise out of a pre-existing mole. The rest arise out of brown discolored areas of skin. Melanomas can spread 2 ways, one by the lymphatic system and one by way of the bloodstream. So the best treatment for melanoma is an early recognition.
Carcinomas appear almost exclusively in light-skinned people. Melanomas appear more frequently in Caucasians, but they can also develop on dark brown or black skin.
Young people that go to the beach sit all day for the suntan without sunblock. It's going to lead to skin cancer, plus aging of the skin. They're going to get wrinkles faster.
The current epidemic of skin cancer can be due in large part to our years as a nation of unprotected sun worshippers. Now we know better, but the damage may have already been done. Your vigilance and periodic self-examination can help spot an early skin cancer before it becomes untreatable.
No one on Earth can escape the sun. So how can you protect your skin and keep the sunshine in your life? When we return on Today's Health.
It's more important to avoid exposure to the sun now than ever before. The ozone layer can no longer shield us as well from the sun's UV rays. The EPA estimates that ozone depletion over the United States will lead to an additional 200,000 skin cancer deaths during the next 50 years.
Have you ever seen more perfect skin? Soft, supple, unblemished, and untainted by the sun.
The sun is murder on your skin and could be deadly to you too. Consider this. By the year 2000, your risk for developing a malignant melanoma will be 1 in 75, compared to 1 in 1,500 in the 1930s, when tans weren't considered fashionable. Now, this statistic tells us one thing loud and clear: limit your time in the sun.
Obviously, we can't all hide indoors and become a nation of night people, but there are several precautions specified by the American Academy of Dermatology that can help us minimize our sun exposure and the risk of skin cancer and premature aging that comes with it.
People can limit their exposure to the sun by slipping on a hat, slopping on some sunscreen, and placing a shirt on when they go outside. They can also try to go out in the sun early in the morning or late in the day. Children should be protected from the sun. We know that it's the cumulative sun exposure over many years which causes problems later in life. When using sunscreens, one should use a sunscreen with a sun protection factor of 15. Sunscreen should be applied approximately 45 minutes to an hour prior to going out in the sun.
If you think it's too much trouble to shield yourself from the sun, maybe this statistic will change your mind. The sun causes 90% of all skin cancer and 90% of all wrinkles.
The reason I think I developed melanoma is because as a child, I was in the sun all the time. I'm very fair-skinned. All my friends, my family, we always spent vacations in the sun, and I eventually moved to Miami Beach. I sat in the sun without any sunscreen. In those days, nobody used sunscreen, and we would use iodine and baby oil, spread it all over us, and sit with sun reflectors to get more sun. And if the sun wasn't out one day, we would even sit under sun lamps. Everyone I knew would get beautiful color bronze, and I would get freckles and turn red, and it was not a pretty sight. I presume those early days were the beginning of my getting a melanoma.
Self-examination certainly plays a role. in diagnosing early skin cancer. We are at our best in knowing our own bodies, and therefore, if something changes, color or crust or scales, these are some of the early warning signs that one might be developing a skin cancer.
By taking the proper precautions, we can prevent further damage. And by practicing regular self-examinations, we can spot dangerous growths before they become deadly skin cancers. We're a lot older now, and hopefully a little wiser. And with that, abandon our fascination with getting a tan, because it's clearly a case of indecent exposure.
Eating on the run has become a national pastime. When we sacrifice our diet to meet our deadlines, how can we fill in the gaps? Stay with us on Today's Health.
Ever hear the saying, "You are what you eat"? Well, some of us are painting quite a canvas nutritionally. We overdo it in some areas and leave others incomplete. So what do we do to make up for what's missing? More and more people are turning to vitamins and nutritional supplements.
Who says lunch is for wimps? Wrong-headed thinking like that has made taking time out for a properly balanced meal almost a stigma on today's fast track. The trend towards fast food, drive-through, and eating on the run may save time this afternoon, but could steal years from our life expectancy.
Eating right, choosing the right foods, going to the grocery store, reading nutrition labels is very, very important for staying not just well, but for actually being healthy.
Good health is very important to me. I think there's an Arabian quote. It says, "He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything." And I absolutely believe in that for myself, for my family, my children. You know what it's like when you eat terrible. You feel awful. You don't want to do anything. I mean, even if you're just sitting in front of a computer, if you feed your body junk, you're not going to be able to be alert and to be as intelligent as you want.
Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, many other chronic diseases, even in some cases arthritis, can be substantially modified if a person would take a little bit more time to consider nutrition and, of course, exercise.
I guarantee, and I've learned from my own performance, that if you eat well, you're just going to feel better. It's difficult to measure at times. If you listen to your body, you can really tell a difference. When you eat well, you feel well, you can perform better, you have a ton of energies, you need less sleep, and people are going to notice a difference.
We have vitamin and mineral supplements. We have supplements that athletes might take to enhance their performance, such as a sports drink or a sports bar. We have food supplements that provide additional fiber, for example, to an individual's diet. So there's a wide array of supplements on today's market.
I started using nutritional supplements 8 years ago, and I'm over 40 years old, and at 40 years old, I can ski and run and bike as fast as any 20-year-old. And I believe that's because of nutritional supplements. They're fuel for performance. What I really notice is I can go on 6 hours of sleep. Without nutritional supplementation, I needed to sleep a lot more.
Some companies like Metal Botanical make an entire line of health and nutrition products and offer information about what supplement may be needed and when.
Food provides not just vitamins and minerals and calories for energy, but also different chemicals that interact with the energy nutrients, carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and then the non-energy nutrients, vitamins and minerals. So supplements probably to date cannot provide all of these things. Therefore, in combination with good food that has the energy nutrients and the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, I see a more perfect profile.
You won't have a hard time finding information about diets and healthy eating. There are enough books, pamphlets, and opinions to fill an entire library. It's up to you to decide which ideas are credible and make the most sense for your lifestyle.
Arthritis in the knee. A walk in the park becomes a painful ordeal. What can you do to cope with the pain and live life to the fullest? Next on Today's Health.
At some point in our evolution, Homo sapiens began walking on two legs and separated themselves from the four-legged mammals. It's a safe bet that not long after that, the first knee problems developed. We may no longer live in caves and we don't use our legs to escape the bears. So why do our knees still hurt?
It doesn't matter if you're a professional athlete, a weekend warrior, or a confirmed couch potato. Our knees are some of the most used and abused joints in our body. And if arthritis flares up in those joints, the simple act of walking can become a very painful ordeal. It can require physical therapy, exercise, pain medications, topical analgesics, mechanical devices, and even surgery. Each one of those pain management options has its own set of benefits and limitations.
All of the medications that we use to treat osteoarthritis have some rare side effects. Unfortunately, these side effects are more common in the elderly patient, which is the most common patient that we see with osteoarthritis. Some of the side effects include ulcers in the stomach, kidney damage, and liver damage. Although these are fairly rare, we have to be very careful with our medications that we treat patients with osteoarthritis.
I cope with pain by taking anti-inflammatory medications when the pain is severe. Otherwise, I just kind of tough it out and walk through it.
When talking about osteoarthritis and the pain it causes in the knee, it's important to understand how the pain develops and persists.
The knee joint is basically composed of three separate compartments. There's the two compartments where the thigh bone connects to the shin bone, and that we call the femoral tibial components. And there's both a medial side and a lateral side. The third component is where the kneecap or the patella moves up and down when the knee is moving in its flexion and extension motions. Most of the pain that patients perceive in osteoarthritis comes from the medial joint component. This model has taken the kneecap or the patella away, and we can see then there are two sides of the knee joint. This is the medial side and this is the lateral side. In this instance, this patient has lost cartilage on the medial side. And what often happens then is that side bears the brunt of the load. And when the patient walks, the majority of the force from weight bearing goes on that diseased side of the joint. And if it gets bad enough, the leg actually starts to angle. And you see people who are bow-legged, they actually have a curvature at their knee joint. So one of the techniques to perhaps to try to improve the patient's symptoms is to either do surgery or do bracing that would change the configuration to take the load off of the diseased side of the joint.
I wear the knee brace quite often, most often when I'm playing tennis, and if my knee is aggravated, I'll play it wear it while I play golf.
We can run, dance, walk, and even stand around and not think much about it until it hurts. And then we come to the painful realization that our knee joints affect every step we take. And if we can make each small step less painful, it's a giant leap toward a better day.
It's hard to believe that the aches and pains from chronic arthritis can get so bad that surgery actually looks like the less painful alternative. But surgery should only be considered as a procedure of last resort. There are many other things that you can do in the meantime.
The human body is custom-made for motion. Our agility, mobility, and dexterity all depend on the complex interaction between our bones, ligaments, and muscles. Unfortunately, arthritis can inflame our joints and impede our natural motion. A recent design innovation in knee braces, like this one called the Unloader, manufactured by Generation 2, corrects that unbalanced situation.
The primary purpose of the cast is to fit well on the thigh and the shin so that they are stabilized. The most important strap on the unloading brace is the strap that comes around from the behind and goes through a loop, and then the patient relaxes the knee and tightens up the strap and comes across with the Velcro. When this happens, the knee brace actually causes the leg to straighten out, and what that happens in this situation is taking the load off of the medial part of the knee which in this individual patient is the part where the arthritis is.
The effectiveness of the utilization of the unloaded brace is that it definitely keeps people from going on to the surgical intervention, either an arthroscopy or a total joint replacement.
Undergoing surgery is usually a measure of last resort. Most people want to avoid the risks of an intrusive surgical procedure, and surgery can also be very expensive.
There's a vast array of treatment that can be performed prior to any surgery for osteoarthritis. And the realm is from injections, limiting an activity, utilizing a brace, to taking anti-inflammatory agents by mouth prior to any surgical intervention.
It's very important for me to avoid another surgery. I've already had several, and every time they go in there, they take another little piece and part of me out of there. I'm a young guy, and I'd rather prolong that as long as humanly possible. I do know that artificial joints wear out. My mother has had 2 knee replacements already, and one has already loosened up, and I suspect she'll need to have that joint replaced very, very soon.
The pain from arthritis in the knees can literally cripple a person. We don't yet know how to cure arthritis, so the best we can do is to try and help reduce the pain. The degenerative changes caused by osteoarthritis often alter the structure of the joints. A mechanical device that can compensate for the alteration may provide a non-systemic way to relieve pain and hopefully avoid surgery. If so, we can measure the economic advantages in dollars and cents, but the human benefit could be priceless.
Yes! Sometimes it seems like the sun and everything under it can cause health problems, but it's really not so bad. To every problem, there is a solution. And if you remember the basics, a healthy diet, plenty of exercise, and a positive attitude, you can give yourself the greatest gift of all, good health. I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Join us again next time as we get right to the heart of matters affecting your life on Today's Health.
This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.